200 feet below the surface of the Blackwood Ridge, the air drops to near freezing. Water steadily drips from the collapsing ceiling. Down here, the only light is the trembling beam of a handheld flashlight as it sweeps across the jagged rock. The beam catches something unnatural against the decay. Gouged deep into an ancient, splintering support timber are fresh, jagged cuts. They spell out a name: Arthur Pendleton. The Blackwood mine was permanently sealed by the state in 1984. No one has legally set foot in this shaft for 40 years. Yet Arthur Pendleton, the man whose name is scraped into the wood, went missing exactly 3 weeks ago. A man cannot physically carve his own name into a subterranean tunnel that has been sealed under 6 tons of concrete since before he was born. We are looking at a physical impossibility. 3 weeks prior, Arthur walked out his back door, headed up the dense, steep trails of the bordering national forest, and vanished. He left no torn clothing, no dropped gear, and no distress calls. The county authorities spent 4 days sweeping the tree line before scaling back the operation. They noted the difficulty of the terrain and the town's history of hikers getting lost in the unpredictable geography of the ridge, concluding that Arthur had simply succumbed to the mountain. Elena noticed a strange pattern in the town's response. Despite the mine's closure decades ago, Blackwood didn't look like a dying town. The local equipment dealership was thriving, and the sheriff's department had recently upgraded to an expensive fleet of heavy-duty trucks that seemed unnecessary for a population of 800. When the people who are supposed to provide answers instead provide silence, the void they leave behind is eventually filled by the desperation of those left behind. Elena ignored the sparse police file. She bypassed the standard search grids entirely and began pulling county archives, looking for local historical anomalies that the search and rescue teams had dismissed. This modern topographical map shows Arthur's final location from his last cell ping. Layering a 1920 survey of the Blackwood claims over it reveals a perfect intersection. The historical map showed a feature absent from modern records: the blind vein. This unrecorded ventilation shaft officially led nowhere, but bypassed the sealed main entrance to access the lower caverns. She took this geographical oddity to a retired miner in town. He refused to look at the map, but he did mention the deep rhythmic rumble of heavy, unmarked transport trucks moving through the unpaved fire roads near that exact ridge, always after midnight. Elena mapped the coordinates of the late-night truck noise directly over the location of the blind vein. The rumors and the geography aligned perfectly, creating a single vesture pointing straight into a mountain the entire town insisted was dead. Squeezing through the blind vein meant crawling down a 40-degree incline of loose shale and rusted, decaying iron. With every shift of weight, small rocks and dirt rained down from the ceiling, threatening to collapse the passage entirely. At the bottom of the incline, the environment changed. The debris on the floor had been recently cleared, and the narrow walls were lined with fresh electrical conduits and industrial-grade rubber matting to dampen the sound of footsteps. The Blackwood mine serves as a silent infrastructure for a logistics network that bypassed the state's highways entirely. The new trucks at the sheriff's office and the thriving local businesses were the dividends of an operation that required the mountain to remain abandoned to the outside world. This timeline flowchart plots Arthur's final movements. His off-trail hiking route intersected the blind vein's hidden entrance right as a transport was moving. Witnessing the active operation, he was intercepted immediately. Held in the dark, Arthur used a piece of shale to scrape his name into the timber. It's a permanent distress beacon left for anyone who might come looking. The impossibility of a fresh carving in a sealed mine now has a purely human explanation. Elena had hiked into the mountain expecting a rescue mission and walked directly into an active, town-wide conspiracy. The environment was suddenly reacting to her presence. The faint ambient drip of water was interrupted by the sharp crunch of gravel. A fresh boot print overlapped her own. The people guarding the operation knew she was down there. A heavy flashlight beam cut through the tunnel behind her. Elena broke into a run, sprinting completely blind through the labyrinth of decaying tunnels as a shadowy figure gave chase, closing the distance with terrifying speed. She didn't rely on speed to escape. She relied on the archives. Memorizing the vintage cross-section allowed her to navigate a sharp, unstable switchback in the blind vein. She squeezed through a precarious fissure, triggering a minor rockfall that walled off her pursuer. The physical threat of the mountain is now behind her, replaced by the weight of the evidence she's carrying. Surviving the descent was only the first step toward exposing what Blackwood has been hiding. Elena pulls herself out of the narrow rock fissure and breaks through the tree line. The cold, dense fog of the early morning wraps around the quiet mountain, indifferent to the violence beneath it. She looks back at the ridge, now holding the exact coordinates and the photographic proof of the modified tunnels. Grief has been replaced by a dangerous clarity. She no longer needs the town's permission to find the truth. We often look for supernatural reasons when things vanish without explanation, but the truth is usually grounded in dirt, greed, and human error. The impossible mysteries are solved by following the undeniable echoes left behind in the dark by those we refuse to forget.